Battlefield 2042, a game that millions of gamers had been waiting for, finally released on November the 19th. Been over a month now, and just like a lot of you, I too am pretty disappointed. How's it going, mates? My name is KP, and after a month of some fun yet excruciating gameplay, I thought it was time I shared my thoughts and ideas. Before I start, I will say this will actually be a first for myself and the channel, so if you enjoy the video and like to see more content like this, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, before I got stuck into a Battlefield review, I wanted to give it some time to gain a good amount of experience while also seeing how the devs will respond to any issues that arose. It's been over a month, and my god, what a month it's been. From broken weapon mechanics and unbalanced vehicles to bugs, crashes and network issues, Battlefield has been a disaster of a release. However, one thing I can admit is that DICE have been listening to the community and are actively trying to fix it with weekly patches. Each patch has been specifically targeting big issues in the game, such as the broken spread mechanic from day one that caused the PP-29 to be the only viable automatic weapon, to issues that have also been largely spoken about within the community, such as the Nightbird, hovercrafts, and bolting nerfs that we all begged for. Patch 3.1 released on December the 9th, and along with it, DICE also announced that it will be the last patch while the developers take their holiday break, which gives me an opportunity to now share my thoughts before anything else changes. So, is this game still the mess it released in and is doomed for all eternity? Or are the patches actually making a difference? Let's find out. To start off, I wanted to talk about one of the major differences Battlefield has brought to the game, and that changes a big part of the Battlefield experience. And that's specialists. Previous Battlefield titles ran a class system where players would choose between 4 roles, such as Assault, Engineer, Support, and Recon. This forced players to use certain types of weapons and equipment that were more specific to their class. This gave each player a certain role to play, but in 2042, they kinda just chucked that all out the window. You can now run the Medic Falc with the Sniper and a C5, or if you run the Specialist Angel, not only can you choose whatever weapon you fancy, but you can also revive teammates, replenish ammo, and heal with the Med Pen. If you use your supply crate, not only are you able to swap out to any equipment that you need whilst out on the battlefield, but you can also use it to replenish endless amounts of rockets or C5. I also notice if you have armor set up on a loadout, you can use it to armor up before swapping back to a different one. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't entirely hate the specialists. I do think they bring something to the table when it comes to gameplay. Sundance's wingsuit is handy for mobility, but Innates could definitely use with a bit more work. No, not to the chopper. No, to the bolty. Irish's deployable cover helps on maps that lack cover. McKay's good for grappling up to high up areas like the Dark Knight himself.
I'm Batman.
And Boris? I fucking hate Boris. But you get my point. Some of the traits and abilities are useful to gameplay mechanics, but others do need a look into. After some thought, a way DICE could keep the specialists but still bring back the Battlefield roles is to force specialists to run weapons and equipment related to their class. DMRs and shotguns would be generic and usable by all roles, but then specialists such as Boris would run LMGs, Casper would run snipers, Falc would run SMGs, and Sundance and McKay would run ARs. DICE have already set roles for each of the specialists, they just need the restrictions to match their playstyle. DICE would also have to make sure that when you switch back and forth, it saves your last weapon used, so you don't have to constantly set them up between switches. Now let me know what you think of this idea in the comments. Do you think this could help bring back that Battlefield experience of having separate roles to play? Or do you prefer being a one-man army? Next up, we have a quick one, but it's an important one. Possibly one of the most important aspects of any shooter, and that's the gunplay. During release, Battlefield had a horrendous gunplay experience, with a broken spread mechanic causing the PP-29 to be the only viable automatic weapon, and along with that, 2042 also was dealing with awful hit registration, to the point where whole clips would just sometimes not register. Like, at all. Over the weeks, DICE have been working hard to fix this one, and for me, it's definitely feeling 100 times better. I will admit I'm not a big fan of the spread or bloom mechanic in shooters, but at the same time I do see its uses. For example, ARs and LMGs having more spread when hip fired to promote ADS, and SMGs having a tighter spread when hip fired for a better close quarters weapon choice. But either way, I've always favoured recoil control when it comes to aiming down sights. End of the day, I am currently enjoying the gunplay experience in 2042. It definitely feels a lot better than release with patching, and considering I'm not usually a fan of the spread, I don't generally complain about it during gameplay. I won't lie, sometimes my bullets won't be 100% accurate. Bullets will sometimes fly off randomly when ADS, but I also don't know if that could be the grip I've equipped, whether I'm moving with a static grip or vice versa. Either way, I'm pretty happy with how it's improved so far, and I'm excited to eventually see some new guns get added into the mix. People have also been complaining about there only being 22 weapons available on launch. Personally, I wasn't too fazed by this. Don't get me wrong, I would like to see more guns added to 2042, but as a base, I was quite happy with working with the 22 given, as long as they start adding some more in soon. There are a couple of weapons that I'm keen to see, like the future AUG or G36C, or maybe even a bow of some sort, like the compound or crossbow. What about you guys? What weapons would you like to see added in 2042? Now moving on to the maps, if there's one thing I will admit is Battlefield have done a fantastic job at creating some stunning looking places. Combined with Battlefield's realistic graphics, they make for some truly beautiful views, with a variety of different terrains. However, on the functionality of a player's standpoint, they're honestly just not that great. The maps are generally just too large, making it a mission to run from point to point, and a lot of areas of the maps just feel overwhelmingly open, with very little structure and very little cover. Sure, big maps, vehicles, and large player counts are a big part of the Battlefield experience, but I feel map design was just so much better in previous titles. It feels like more time was spent creating these larger map sizes and less time was actually spent filling them. You find smaller maps such as Manifest and Kaleidoscope filled with more foliage, structures, and cover, whereas the larger maps like Hourglass and Breakaway just feel empty and unfinished in some areas. The cover used throughout the maps is constantly reused, giving the maps no feeling of creativity. For example, the running theme of shipping containers that you find on Breakaway, Manifest, Orbital, Renewal, and Discarded. Some structures and areas have obviously had a little bit more work put into them, such as the oil rig on Breakaway, the shipwreck and debris on Discarded, and also the center building on Kaleidoscope. But then you just see the rest of the map filled with the same square type structures, whether it's square warehouses, square buildings, square containers, square electrical boxes that kill you. We need some cover on the rooftops. How about some square vents? Overall, when it comes down to the maps, I think DICE should maybe rework some of the current maps if possible, whilst keeping in mind all the mistakes made when designing the new ones. They don't need to fully change the maps, just add some more cover or structure into certain areas, instead of leaving it an open barren. To wrap it up, as proven by DICE, size doesn't matter. It's how you use it that counts. Moving on to vehicles. There were a couple that were pretty imbalanced in the beginning, as many of you may have heard. The Nightbird with its rocket pods, and the hovercrafts and bolties with their incredible strength and pack-a-punch weaponry. These things were pretty OP at the start, but over the weeks, DICE have targeted these vehicles and nerfed them, making them all a bit more manageable. People also believe that the armor is too strong on tanks and AA, but with double the server size, I think DICE were expecting more pressure on vehicles, which possibly could be why they bumped up their strength. Now, I don't really have an issue with this. It kind of seems fair to me in that sense, and I mean, I can still kill a tank solo with C5, no worries, or a couple of teammates with recoilless M5s can take them down pretty quickly. Moving on to air, I currently find the Felon to be the superior jet. That's a personal opinion, but out of all of my attempts to use the F-35E, Felons always seem to outmaneuver me very quickly. It doesn't matter if I start chasing them, in a few seconds I'm usually the one getting chased. When they're on my tail, I use air brake and hover so that they can fly past and into my crosshairs, but I end up just being a stationary target and getting wiped out instantly. Now, I have come across some good Panther pilots, I'm not gonna lie, but 9 out of 10 times I'll easily get around the back of a Panther even if they start the chase. This I feel is a bit unfair, and when I'm joining onto a game, the team I'm placed on will pretty much determine if I'm going to even touch the jet or not. I would like to see both sides get a similar jet, give Russia a slower jet with hover functionality, and give the US a speedy jet with a quick turn circle. That way, no matter what team you join, you get to choose your preferred type, which might also help get more jets in the skies and more dogfights going. Now, while we're on the topic of air vehicles, I would like to quickly say that I would like some separate controls for choppers and jets. Personally, I fly jets and choppers differently, causing my natural keybinds to clash. I have tried to work around this by relearning different keybinds, but it would be nice to be able to use the keybinds I want without having to swap them around depending on which aircraft I'm flying. One last idea I'd like to add is to add non-combat vehicles such as quads and eventually dirt bikes to the spawn list. Whether you spawn them on deployment or spawn them at captured points like you could in previous titles. I just think this would really help with map mobility considering the maps are so large. As a note, they may have to also up the acceleration on these vehicles, as the quad currently has pretty slow acceleration, which isn't ideal considering you're out in the open. It doesn't make for a good getaway vehicle, that's for sure. Now moving on, I'll make this one quick, and that's the UI. Apart from the minimap size, I'm pretty happy with this one. Overall, it's pretty clean and informative. There are a few obvious things missing, such as all chat and a scoreboard, but we'll get into the aspects Battlefield left out soon, don't worry. I will say the objectives are a bit distracting at times, and as mentioned before, I find the minimap size to be too small. Maybe DICE could add adjustable minimap size to the settings, similar to previous titles like Battlefield 4. Apart from that, DICE have been implementing fixes, such as adding your selected fire mode to the UI. Originally, you could only see this when ADS, but not while your weapon was down. They did make the crosshair different depending on which fire mode was selected, but having these two different systems in place just made things confusing, especially if you were unaware of the crosshair trick. Lastly, we have Portal and Hazard Zone to talk about. Personally, I haven't played much Hazard Zone. I had one game around release and I haven't been able to find a game since, similar to Firestorm in Battlefield 5. Portal, however, I've given a bit more of a go. Game modes are designed for fun and entertainment rather than the grind, and DICE have also revamped 1942, Bad Company 2, and Battlefield 3 for us to use in Portal using 2042's new engine. To me, it's a great place to unwind, play some random game modes and get nostalgic. A lot of the game modes I've come across have been pretty wild and fun, and although it still needs its tweaks here and there, it still does make for some great downtime between stressful experiences in all-out warfare. Alright guys, now before I go over anything that's actually in the game, I would like to talk about the things that are missing. First up, we have all chat. Just like many of you, I want all chat back. DICE removed it to protect people from toxicity and bullying, but I miss seeing someone you've killed being salty or accusating you in chat. All chat was great just to read the banter happening throughout the game, whereas now it just seems to be a place where your team complain about the game or tell each other how bad they are for not playing it right. Another important aspect DICE removed was the scoreboard. It's bad enough not being able to compare your personal placement within the team, or being able to tell if an enemy chopper on 100-0 needs to be taken out of the sky. DICE have given us a personal scoreboard to see our stats in-game, but the second the match ends, poof, gone. The fact that I can't even check my score the second the match is over honestly baffles me. Endgame experience is honestly just cringy and uninformative, which nobody asked for. Instead, we see some dumb stats like 2 parachute kills. But then to remove something as vital in an FPS as a scoreboard is just pretty ridiculous.
Fuck yeah, 93 damage repaired, let's go. Such a benefit to what I was doing in the vehicles, yeah.
Oh, I had 4 LMG kills, let's go. Even though I got 10 kills in my little bird.
Our last honorable mention goes to the server browser. The server browser feature is available in Portal, so players can create custom games. However, it's not available for official DICE servers. Server browsers not only brought a community aspect to the game or the gameplay options, whether you wanted 1,000 ticket conquest or 24/7 metro and locker, but for me, a great aspect server browser brought was a solid map rotation. Even if you decided to jump out for a game, when you came back, you wouldn't expect to be playing the same map you played 20 minutes ago. Whereas now, I can find myself playing Orbital twice in a row, then playing one game of Manifest before we're back on Orbital again. This just causes some days to lose variety, and repeating the same maps gets very boring very quickly. So for that reason alone, I would like to see server browsers added to the all-out warfare experience with official DICE servers. Alright guys, we're just coming to the last point now. I just want to bring up a couple of quick items that I'm not really a fan of and explain why. First up, we have the armor plates. Just like many people, I feel these should only exist in Hazard Zone or a BR type situation. Most of the equipment in Battlefield helps not only yourself, but also the team, whether it's supplies, repairs, insertions, or vehicle destruction. Equipment has been designed with team play in mind, whereas armor on the other hand just helps create more solo play, and is unfair in gunfights for players that choose equipment that is more useful for the team. Next up are the sentry turrets and ranger dogs. My biggest issue with these mainly is number 1, it's an AI shooting you, not the skill of a player, and number 2, it's just they're generally just a pest to take out. Don't get me wrong, they're not over the top strong, but they can throw a spanner in the works pretty quickly. Now maybe they could make them remote control instead, more like the EODs or drones, but being shot at or killed by an AI is just frustrating. Especially when it one-shots you out of a chopper.
Fat penguin.
Oh,
What?
oh my god.
Are you actually kidding? I got shot out of a chopper by a sentry turret. Alright guys, that about covers all game aspects I wanted to discuss. Obviously the game still has many bugs, performance issues and crashes, but when I get to play without issue, I do have a good time. The game overall looks great, sounds great, and now that the gunplay has been fixed, it's starting to feel better too. There are still a lot of issues, bugs and balances that they need to work on, and I do have some really frustrating games at times. Recently, 2042 had a free-to-play weekend, which helped people check out all the changes DICE have made so far. Servers sparked back up again, but I think if people are still not happy with the game in its current state, DICE really need to come up with some solid updates once they return from their holiday break. And that finally brings us to the end of the video. We had a lot to talk about, but if you enjoyed the video and thought I made some good points, make sure to give it a like and subscribe, and I'll work on making some more content like this. If you have any other thoughts on the game, let us know down in the comments, as I'm always curious to see what others think. And until next time, you guys have a good one, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers, mates.